System. Welcome, everybody, to Boston 9/11 Truth. Today we have Jonathan Mark Haber. And before I formally introduce him, I just want to quickly go through our disclaimers. So the views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not necessarily represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Boston 9/11 Truth. The material and information presented here is for general information and educational purposes only. Boston 9/11 Truth aims to inspire and promote action by truth advocates who support them and their efforts. The name of Boston 9/11 Truth and all its forms and abbreviations are property of its owners and does not imply endorsement or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. During the participation, our participants are asked to abide by our guidelines, which you all received in an email in detail. Just to summarize, during the entire meeting, all participants are to use polite decorum and are expected to be respectful of all other participants. No personal attacks are allowed. Of course, disagreement and debate are allowable as long as the content, not the person, is confronted. Voices are to be kept at a speaking level of sound, no shouting, and no one interrupts another person. The first part of our meeting is with our guest speaker. He is to be allowed to present in full without interruption. So I will be muting everyone during Jonathan's presentation. And so without further ado, Jonathan Mark is an investigative journalist and founder of Flyby News in 1999, a platform dedicated to exposing the intersection of military power, government secrecy, and psychological operations. His 2025 memoir, In Plain Sight, a memoir infused with military psychological operations, weaves together 2 decades of whistleblower testimony with evidence of a lost civilization warning from Mars. He is a co-founder of Valley 9/11 Truth in Western Massachusetts. And as I just learned also, he founded, what was the name of it, Jonathan? That is now...
it was the Boston 9/11 Truth Conference.
The one that morphed into the 9/11 Deep State and other crimes.
Right.
Yes.
We were just a teleconference. It just made us feel more sane when we're talking to each other,
right?
When the media is going through haywire.
What year was that?
I really got involved around 2006.
Wow.
That's when I founded the Valley 9/11 Truth Group.
That's excellent.
And I was really involved with 9/11 through at least the first 10 years to 2011, 2012. And I interviewed Bob Bowman, Lieutenant Colonel Bob Bowman on YouTube, and also Mike Gravel and Peter Janney that did the book Mary's Mosaic.
Yeah.
The murders of John F. Kennedy, Mary Pinchot Meyer, and their vision for world peace. And and also Richard Gage and everybody that would come through here. It was really an honor with having Lieutenant Colonel Bob Bowman, because it was a different person that you don't usually find.
Yes, he was definitely larger than life, and dearly missed. So I'll just continue on with your introduction.
Oh yeah, sure.
All right, and then we can get into all this. This is awesome. Your proposed topic tonight is 9/11 as a gateway, connecting the dots to a larger pattern of deception. This presentation will explore how events of September 11th, 2001 cannot be understood in isolation. They are a critical node in a much larger web that includes the militarization of space, how the post 9/11 termination of the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty accelerated the weaponization of space, and a trajectory Flyby News was founded to oppose it. The suppression of whistleblowers, from the silencing of Thomas Barron before Apollo 1 to the marginalization of the Manhattan Project mathematician Bart Jordan, who decoded an ancient nuclear warning on Mars. The PSYOP playbook, how the conspiracy theory label has been weaponized to dismiss inconvenient truths, from JFK's assassination to COVID-19, creating a public unable to recognize patterns of deception. A recurring warning, the evidence from Mars encoded in geometry and isotopic decay suggests a civilization failed its own technological tests. 9/11 and its aftermath represent our generation's version of that test. Drawing on 2 decades of Flyby News archives, including local activism with Valley 9/11 Truth, actions at the Springfield Federal Building, screenings of loose change, and 10 years of community engagement. This talk will show that the fight for 9/11 truth is inseparable from the fight for peace, transparency, and human survival. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the movement and everybody here. I'm going to go back to how I found out about 9/11 and why I started researching it. And it was in 1997 that there was a launching of a space probe that, instead of going directly to Saturn, it went to Venus first to do 2 flybys around Venus, and then came back for an Earth flyby, but had 72.3 pounds of highly radioactive plutonium on board. It was traveling around 10 miles per second. If it inadvertently went into our atmosphere during that flyby, it would have released 99% of the radiation on board in a spread out that would affect maybe 5 billion people that would receive that radiation. And it doesn't take much radiation to cause cancers and things once it gets inside the body. So it kind of woke me up to the insanity of the movement there for the militarization of space. And so our first campaign, after exposing the Cassini flyby, which I did on a website called the Action Site to Stop Cassini Earth Flyby with Joe McIntyre. He was the webmaster from the Florida Coalition for Peace and Justice. And he was good friends with Carl Grossman, was working with that group. So Carl, when he came up to Massachusetts at UMass to present about the launching of the Cassini space probe and why that was dangerous, and he already authored the book, The Wrong Stuff, the Space Program's Nuclear Threat Against Our Planet. And I figured all I had to do was, support him, and we maybe could stop the expansion of the arms race into outer space, so it could then be reversed at some point. If it stopped expanding, why not? So it was because of the 1999 Cassini flyby, I became involved with journalism. And in that mode, I was always researching what is, and I had to convince myself of that in order to deal with what I was investigating and exploring. And it was in 1998 1998 or so, the Project for a New American Century published their own paper about global domination and taking over, space as a military platform. And but because of the ABM treaty, they couldn't put offensive weapons in space. So I just trying to maintain the preservation of space for peace. And there was an agreement that the U.S. signed and 95 other UN member states about the peaceful use of space treaty. And the idea and the ideal was to just to stop war at some point and have an area where the world could unite in a mutual positive direction. So it was in 1999. I also started investigating the election of 2000 with Al Gore and George Bush Jr. and the actual um, election was taken over by the Supreme Court in a 5-4 ruling. Decided that Bush should become president without counting all the votes. And there was questions about the votes, and it was later discovered that Gore did have the votes. But then Fahrenheit 9/11 came with Michael Moore, and it was really fascinating to see all these Black caucus Congress people trying to convince Al Gore to contest the election because he was running the hearings as vice president at the time, and he wouldn't contest the election. So I thought there was something very funny about that business. And so when you got Bush and Cheney coming into the office with this funny way of an election, I knew about their history with Star Wars and other elements for weaponizing space. And so I was just trying to, work with Dennis Kucinich and others to try to keep space for peace. And unfortunately, in 2000, I think after 9/11, and I think it was around, they had to give 6 months advance notice to break the away from the ABM treaty. I was able to expose the what happened was George Bush Jr. was able to unilaterally end the treaty that was signed by both Congress and the House and the president. And all of a sudden, we had the ability of putting weapons in space. So that kind of expanded the whole arms race. And, my memoir goes into a lot of these things, especially it also goes into my early childhood, where we used to hide under the desks when they were doing duck and cover drills. And I always had the feeling like, what happened with Kennedy. And so it was 9/11 was like the can opener because I had to investigate 9/11 because that was the excuse being given by George Bush. There's this funny thing about 9/11 anthrax powder. I remember an article by William Rivers Pitt that was published that was all about hell to pay about John Sullivan being put into this harmful position in the World Trade Center 7. And I just didn't want to believe it at first. And I felt my cognitive dissonance was very significant. So I had to keep reminding myself what is, what is. And through the Cassini flyby, I actually developed a friendship and a relationship with the whistleblower, Bart Jordan, who would review all this information with me. And he was very careful about being halfway under the radar for many years. And he finally became more public after his article in 1997 about the moons of Mars. So anyway, hold on a second, I got a drink. So Bart Jordan is a whole nother story that is very hard to do. And that's why I'm so glad I have this book, because I wasn't able to explain Bart Jordan in the way of physics and mathematics and language. He guest lectured at 5 departments at the University of New Hampshire and was a concert classical guitarist who studied under Andre Segovia. So when he wanted to comment on the Cassini flyby, this was 2 months before in June 1999. I said, I didn't want to discourage him, but he said that he has evidence that the ancient civilizations knew all about these isotopes, and that he wanted to comment on it, and he was being suppressed. They couldn't publish in the U.S. So being on the internet, I had the ability of publishing him, and I could always take down take down the article, the information, if it proved to be discredited. And so anyway, we worked together for over 20 years, and he's been very enlightened about all these issues. And it took me 13 years to get him on camera to discuss what he was telling me on the phone for all those 13 years. I was getting very frustrated because I couldn't totally follow the math, but I could hear the consistency in him. And he was very correct about the low frequency active sonar that was hurting the whales and when they got beached in the Keys. And I was on the phone with his direction to ask them if they would do an autopsy near the ears, and that the volunteer that I spoke with, was really wondering why this was happening, and then it kind of explained it to them. And even though we didn't expose the harm by the low frequency active sonar at that time, the next few months later in the Bahamas, there was another beaching, and the people from Woods Hole went there and they did the autopsy, and they proved the sonar was busting their eardrums open because they wanted to see everything under the water. So it became out, and it just impressed me how much of a scope Bart Jordan had. And we were warned not to go to a conference in Bar Harbor regarding the low frequency active sonar from a former military guy that was retired, and he said because we would be hurt. And so we didn't go to that event, but I was dealing with enough things anyway. with But the big things was JFK and 9/11 were getting obvious. And then while I was investigating 9/11 and doing work with Valley 9/11 Truth, you always get these DVDs coming your way, and I was screening them. So I ended up screening Bart Sabrell's film called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, which is a 47-minute uh, film that has hard evidence showing that they were faking being in halfway to the moon when they were in low Earth orbit. And then there was the idea of the shadows, and all these film experts, Massimo Mazzucco, who did the new Pearl Harbor film. He did an incredible one on the moon landing called American Moon. And so there was just hard evidence. And then I started seeing a picture, a pattern, with really beginning with Kennedy's assassination and the way that the U.S. government conducted itself in foreign policies, and coup d'états, and with Chile and Iran, and getting rid of an elected president because they wanted to nationalize their oil. So and oil became a focus for me too, because before I became a webmaster for Flyby News and working against the Cassini flyby, I was involved with a high-tech company working on prototype development for new technologies that could be cleaner in the power generation. And I had a lot of research of the impact of pollution. So I'm one of those few progressive groups that a lot of people got, I think, sidewinged to thinking that there's no harm you can cause to the planet by polluting, no matter how much you pollute, no matter how many trees you cut down, no matter the density of it. You're not going, but there is evidence showing of a climb in global temperatures with records being made almost yearly. And so and also Bart Jordan actually did a modeling of this when he was in the military in the 50s. So I had some inside information on him. But he's the hardest thing to expose, and that's the whole reason why I did the book. I started writing this book in 1976 because I knew my life was going to be significant. I just didn't realize I would need another 50 years. But I and also was on this electric typewriter in a cabin in the woods, and my writing wasn't that good. So after dealing with a couple of drafts, because there's no Xerox machines, and just had carbon paper, and it's a mess. And so that's when I decided I'm going to write poetry. I said this is too hard to do this, and I wasn't ready for it. But I did have an interesting life until 1976, and all that's in my book. But this most significant thing is what was going on in 1976 while I was trying to do my first draft of In Plain Sight. Bart Jordan was involved with the Mars Viking mission that took these pictures of the Cydonia region on Mars. And so, you don't expect him to be correct on all these different issues, but after a while, I started saying to myself, well, he's going to be right about everything. He's a genuine person. All this is going to be true, or all it's going to be false. And after you become friends with someone and you know them on many levels over the 20-year period, and knowing that he was not for his ego or for notoriety, he was really to further messages that he got as a child. So by the time he was 5, he was getting numbers placed in his head that his grandfather told him, just write it down, you'll figure it out. And then he was able to learn from the ancient Greek language, Hellenic language from pre-Ice Age times, was able to confirm these numbers. So he was able to publish in the Encyclopedia Britannica about the moons of Mars and the distances of the 2 moons, Phobos and Deimos, to the center of the red planet. Excuse me. So, I searched and I found that information in the Encyclopedia Britannica. It was published from 1966 to 1973. Then I discovered that the numbers on the Mars Viking mission 35A72 and 70A13, these are 2 frames that were taken of the Cydonia region from the 35th orbit and the 70th orbit. And he identified where the 5-sided pyramid was, and that became 40.87 north. And when you multiply 40.87 times 5 with the 5 sides of the pyramid, it goes into the numbers that's published in the Encyclopedia Britannica about the distances of the 2 moons of Mars. And it forms a formula saying the same thing. One looks like a temple and the other one looks like an axe. And it's saying that there's beauty in knowing, but not in doing. So unless you put this stuff away, you might get the axe. You might go extinct. And this happened before and happened on Mars. And then John Brandenburg, a doctor from the Curiosity probe, was able to detect and confirm xenon 129 in the Mars atmosphere. And that could only come from a thermonuclear bomb explosion. I'm sure they could think about other ways that it could possibly be, but Bart knew about this explosion right over the birth mile wall. And the 2 slides, 35A72 and 70A13, were both misfiled by NASA and wasn't discovered for another 3 years after the mission by DePietro and Molinar. And that's saved us because that was the most critical part of that voyage. So here I'm beginning to learn about Bart Jordan after over a decade of looking at all these other issues with him, with 9/11, JFK, the moon landing hoax, and we were right there on all of it. And then during the as he was sharing with me, he was explaining how he was 8 years old working on the Manhattan Project as the core mathematician, and he was able to break down the number sequence to milliseconds. And there's a proof of that with the 15 on the 15 millisecond mark. He said it would be a perfect 180-degree globe, and he had a design for it and numbers associated with it. The government didn't release the 15 millisecond, but they did release the 16 millisecond picture. and you can see the 180 globe perfectly, but distortion coming at the bottom of it. And so, and after trying to figure out who he was or what he was, he would explain that he's a samanamus, kind of like the ancient Greek word for a shaman. They said that they come every century and a half to pass forth this information because there was high level civilizations before our current time period where we started again. And they knew this, and they produced these monuments on Mars as a way of communicating to us when they believed that we would be able to split the atom. We will be able to see this big face. It's like a mile long, and it's been observed on many levels. NASA will call it, the mountain, like Parajoya, but there's too much evidence showing that it's real, and they've been covering it up since then. So, 1976, he was uncovering this stuff, but it took him till 1999, to really come out after the Moons of Mars article in 97. But he went on and spoke on record on YouTube, and I was able to interview him about 3 or 4 times. And the last time was in 2018, called Bart Jordan, Manhattan Project, NASA Whistleblower. And I recommend everybody watch that 58-minute one. And at the end, you get a little bit of his music and artwork. But but
I'm sorry, I need to interrupt. I didn't catch his name.
Bart Jordan.
Bart Jordan. Okay.
Could you, Jonathan, could you spell it, please? Because I'm not getting it either.
Yeah, let me share you and show you what's on Flyby News. So I'm going to do share. So can you?
Almost there. Click share.
Okay, can you see this now?
Yes.
Can you see? Okay, so this is my website, flybynews.com, and right at the top in the right corner, Bart Jordan is there, his name. And
Okay,
there's a
click
header.
on that.
And then that's the key things. But if you keep going down, my article of 25 years of Flyby News, and there's a great quote by John Goffman at the day of the flyby that the use of plutonium in space is a manifestation of organized insanity, and I find that to be true. And I do have an article on Mars nuclear message and warning for Earth, and the COVID backlash, Kennedy and Trump. October 7th, films and discussion. John Hankey's been very influential in my work, and I did a film compilation called Dark Legacy, JFK and 9/11. I'll show you that when we go down there. UF drones, okay. So this is Flyby News, and then this is the key updated topics, and that's where the 9/11 information is, as well as JFK, the moon landing hoax, health blog, energy pollution, UFO disclosure. But my recent writings, if you click on that image of my book, it'll take you to this page. And this is on Substack. And I hope everybody subscribes to it. And I also have about the book, I give you the introduction. And this is a map that Bart Jordan has of the Cydonia region, combining the 35th orbit and the 70th orbit frames, with the pyramid being the key focal point of it. And then this is a picture of him. And and then this is at the bottom here is the draft narration for In Plain Sight. So if you want to just listen to a little bit of it and not just read it, that's a way of doing it. I narrate it at the Greenfield Community Television Station.
Where can we get a print copy of your book? Where can we get the print copy?
Yeah, it's published. So this you can purchase a hardcover for only $25 at this link, and that's the best one from Ingram Spark. It's not the other ones at Amazon, but the Ingram Spark hardcover is the one I recommend, because I did one more version of it since the Amazon posting, and they also have a dust cover and hardcover, and it's a reduced price because it's normally $35 from bookstores. And you can order it from a bookstore too. and it's in the Greenfield Library and a few other libraries. You might go get it through that. But and then this is where I kind of ask people if they, the book's message resonates with you, and your review can help others find it. So that's where I have some reviews on Amazon and Goodreads. You can check them out. I'm trying to get Avi Loeb to review Bart Jordan's work, as well as Vera Sharav said she was going to give me a review, but I know she's really busy with a lot of her stuff, so I'm not pressing her. And
And this has been 13 years in the making? Or...
Yeah, and that's my picture of my house in the background, and my daughter and my dad.
Wow.
And the face on Mars. I really, I wasn't going to call it In Plain Sight, and Memoir Infused with Military Psychological Operations. I was going to call it Secret Agent PR Man. That's I do mostly PR work, but real public relations. But then when I was trying to design the cover, it needed to be like this, in plain sight, and then it's just perfect for what's on Mars. And even though it's, you can actually buy a Sierra Leone Face on Mars stamp from, they used the 1976 Mars image on their stamp. And I have a few of them for my daughter. So, because I figure eventually it'll be known for what it really is. But before Bart Jordan passed, you see, I'm going to go to the Bart Jordan's page too.
Interesting fellow. Is he still with us?
No, he died actually April 6th. It'll be 2 years.
Oh.
In 2024, he died. And my first sentence kind of spells out how I feel about it. Bart Jordan presents the best science fiction story ever, if it wasn't true. So it's so far I'm convinced, and again, I spoke to his sister who's 4 years older than him, and she had me read this book called Tuxedo Park about the Manhattan Project people that were working on it.
Well, it's very interesting that a musician got into all this.
Yeah, he was eight years old.
Go ahead.
He was 8 years old working on the Manhattan Project. So at the end of it, Alfred Lee Loomis, one of the guys in Tuxedo Park, he said that Bart said that Loomis funded the Rand Corporation. He got his money from the Great Depression. They got his money out and bought up Hilton Head. We're a very rich guy, so he was funding the scientific work. But Bart and his sister both called him a sociopath. And when Bart was done with it, his life was threatened, and with a nail crossing the big magnifying glass that Bart was using in his work, because his eyesight's so bad. And he also never worked on a computer. It was always a old bank calculator. So if you, and again, I did some recent articles on Bart Jordan. So if you go to the let's see where. Yeah, if you go in the Substack and look for the posts, all the posts, you'll be a bunch of them from him. So you go to dashboard and then there's posts. And this is more the updated. This is the artwork he did about Iran in 1979. A missing piece in the with this about Avi Loeb, but this is where I'm going to be embedding the this meeting here on Quagmire and Awakening from 9/11, Truth to Warning from Mars. And then there's
yeah, can you click on that, because I'd like to see how this all ties into 9/11.
Yeah. So okay, so remember, you can find everything just by clicking, in plain sight on my website, flybynews.com.
Okay.
That's where to find things. But the so the way I became aware of 9/11 was I was very resistant and really, wanted to keep weapons out of space. But once they started putting weapons in space, I had to investigate 9/11. And like what you've all found, it's unquestionable, that it was a false flag. And with everything else that was going on with how it was responded to with the fake war in Iraq and what we're still doing today. And the cover up is really as significant as anything. So it's it's the key element, and I wrote about it in the book. I'm trying to get to the chapter.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you.
No, you're doing good. Yeah, the chapter, I think it's chapter 11. No, that was the turn. It would be chapter 8, Wars for Terror and Going Down the Rabbit Hole. And that's exactly how I felt, because you get to see the reality and the Alice in Wonderland where everything wasn't, and what wasn't. It just became, it was just motivated me to do as much work as I could with 9/11. But after 10 years, I did Valley 9/11 Truth for 10 years. We did events in Northampton and Greenfield. And then near the end, I think somebody wanted to have Christopher Boland come, and I didn't want to be involved with it because I have questions about the division of 9/11 by certain plants that I feel I don't trust. So I didn't want to deal with it, and my group just kind of fell apart, and it's a lot of those people weren't dealing with the COVID military psyop, so it was more like it just ended. But the Flyby News didn't end, so I have that resource there. But I was always looking for what's ahead of us, and that's what brought me into understanding about the importance of the moon landing hoax, because they're still trying to fake going there and it's only going to be exposed more and more. So I know that's people treat you worse with the moon landing than any other issue, even worse than talking about 9/11, because it's so ingrained. We grew up with it all our lives, and that's the same element of the cognitive dissonance and denial. But happening the year after the Kennedy assassination, you go back to Substack. At the let's see. And the second page on my post, there's this article called "In 1964, the U.S. nuked the Van Allen belts and almost killed the space program." So if you go to watch that, it kind of explains UPI article mentioning that they used a 2.5 times size the Nagasaki bomb. Am I still on the system?
Yes, you're
Okay,
still
good.
sharing. It looks good.
Good. So it kind of these military people, because they wanted to mess up with the Soviet satellites, exploded a big nuclear bomb about 300 miles from the Earth. And the military people in this UP article said, well, we thought it was just going to disappear, but it kind of screwed up both of our satellites, the Russians and ours, and you can't really do that. So they they realized that, but that's when I think they decided to fake going to the moon, because they really couldn't do it, especially with their added radiation that they placed up there, and why every mission since Apollo has always been low Earth orbit. And so there's an obvious connection with that. And
Wow.
so that being in our future, it's just makes it. There's the Artemis one is here. Artemis 2 unmanned precedents and warning we can't afford. And this is the encoding warning, deciphering the DNM period on Mars. And it kind of goes into all the information I was telling you about, the Encyclopedia Britannica and the two numbers that were on the NASA Mars Viking mission, 35A72 and 7013. So there's, it seems like as interesting as BART is, I think it's going to have to be a step before BART, before people can open up to BART Jordan, unless I get a lot of help. I think the moon landing, they have to admit to that. And that's when NASA will want to go back to Cydonia and accomplish what the greatest mission that they had so far. And the most accomplished was discovering this artifacts on Mars. There's these three walls, and he has measured down to the inch, and a face and a five-sided pyramid and a tholos. And it forms into a formula that's the Scorpios formula, warning about nukes. It's the abuse of light. Anybody have a question?
All right, let's open it up to Q&A at this point.
Okay.
So raise your hand and your electronic hand. If you can't raise your electronic hand, just wave wildly.
Yeah, sorry for going so long. I didn't realize it's 7:30 almost.
No, we started late. That's fine.
Oh, okay.
All right. So Jean and or Sandra have a question.
Yes, sorry, I'm in the grocery store right now, but I wanted to ask. I hear that Jonathan Mark was the start of the 9/11 teleconference. That
yes, yeah. One of them, I think. I think Willie Rodriguez did the first one, and people just needed to talk to each other, and I just wanted to keep it going, so I got a big list together and started, inviting people and just put out the list so everybody saw who was there, and it kept going.
Very cool. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. You still go there?
I frequent now. My wife and I have our own podcast going called the 9/11 War Room. Basically carrying the torch on another platform, just like you did, keeping people talking about it. So thank you.
Well, if you ever want to interview me, and I'm plugging the book here.
Right on.
It's I'll be glad to do any podcasts and library events or other things. It's like for the next 5 years, that's what I'm going to be putting out, because it covers all my poetry, all my writings, as well as the information on Bart Jordan, which I think is important, as well as putting 9/11 in context with all these other military psyops. I think Ray McGovern has a great word for it. He called it the military, industrial, congressional, intelligence, media, academia, think tank complex. And it's really, melted together, and 9/11, and just that they could cover things up and control people's minds with fear and media. I'm glad we're doing other things to reach people. Thank you.
Yep. I just hope that you had the foresight to be able to get people to keep talking about 9/11 on a platform on the internet. Good thought. And again, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So
I'm curious about the moon landing. The last speaker, did he question that? Just to get a feel.
Technically, I just like to say that because I like to stay pure to 9/11 truth, but yeah, I don't think that we went there.
Okay, I have great resources on 9/11 and the moon landing, so help yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So next we have Magnus, who's in Norway. He's raised his hand. Go ahead, Magnus.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here, and very great books. I will, of course, buy one of these. I was wondering just where is 6?
I couldn't quite hear that. Can you speak closer to the mic?
Yeah. Were you aware of Building 7 in 2006?
Yes. Yeah, Building 7 is the smoking gun, no question. And if you go to my 9/11 resources, I have that film about 7, and and I remember seeing the Building 7 come down with Dan Rather reporting about it. He said, "Oh, it looks just like a controlled demolition." And I was looking at it and said, "Oh yeah," the way it came down, Building 7, they had it. And then you find out that this BBC reporter was predicting the downfall of the building, and then to see it crank and then go down. So that was the convincing element for me about the towers and everything, besides Stephen Jones finding the nanothermite and other things. I really like that he collected from 4 different people, and it was just like the grassroots science. It's very inspiring. And then the psychologist helping me, feel a little bit normal.
Wow, thank you.
All right, next we have Jane. Go ahead, Jane.
Thank you. So Jonathan, I'm just you have such a broad um encompassing way of looking at so many things. And you've mentioned, I'm just curious because you've mentioned in passing some mathematical correspondences, angles, I don't know exactly, I don't remember how to address that in my memory right now, but also ancient civilizations.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering, I'm just curious as whether you have listened at all to Sasha Stone and his Lazarus Initiative. Has he come across your path?
Um, yeah, I haven't evaluated it much. Just heard of him, and feel like a lot of people know about these. There's what's his name, the archaeologist that I forget his name. Um, but there's a lot of these people. But I don't know. I'm also careful because a lot of times you get lost in theories, and so I go by, there has to be extraordinary evidence to make an extraordinary claim, and that's my rule. So I'm careful with following people unless they have something strong to
Yeah,
say.
he has so many people on, and who knows whether they're channeling or
Yeah.
how they know what they know, but they seem, they're definitely out of the box and maybe way too far out of the box for some people. But and Sasha Stone himself is he can be he doesn't suffer fools gladly. He professes to have a spiritual understanding, which but anyway, he sometimes gets a little bit arrogant about fools who don't understand what he feels is true. Anyway, there's a lot of that, of course. But I'm just I guess I would just I don't know if you have the time and the bandwidth to check him out more.
Yeah, my litmus test for almost anybody is ask them about the moon landing. Have you
I
researched it?
I
Uh,
don't know. I don't know if he's addressed that
yeah.
or another
I
issue.
know Stephen Greer is, very involved,
Yeah.
but he's also a denier. I mean, he thinks that they're already in cahoots and they have bases, secret bases, and they've been able to re-engineer these things,
Uh-huh.
but no evidence. But so I'm careful about that because he was very instrumental for getting me involved in that issue about disclosure back in 2000. This is right around when 9/11 happened, where the military witnesses and military sites where they had in the missiles silos, that they had a hovering UFO outside the base above the silo, and it was able to turn off all the hardware that was down below with them. They couldn't figure out how they did it, and this has been going on. This is why the government doesn't want to do disclosure, I believe, because they feel so vulnerable.
Well, I appreciate your focus on having things, backed up with evidence and so forth. And anyway, I guess I just thought I'd bring it up because I find him, he's establishing three different off the grid societies, cultures in
Yeah.
Africa and Mexico and Tennessee. Anyway, I don't understand how he has all the energy that he does. And anyway, I just but I guess I just thought I'd mention him because he's
Did you
full
hear
of
of this guy named Anka, Daryl Anka? He had a UFO experience.
Bashar, the
Yeah,
channel for
Bashar. Yeah,
Bashar.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I just
Yeah.
saw him on the
Oh,
the Big Bang Theory woman that was, does the podcast as a
Uh-huh.
neuroscientist, and
Yeah.
she was interviewing Daryl, and I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But that's pure channeling, and he's not too arrogant with it. Where he says, "Well, I'm not sure, but this is I just go with it, and
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but this you can as long as your ego doesn't screw you up, you can
Right.
keep learning
Exactly.
things and
Yes.
testing your intuition and stuff. And I'm keeping my mind pretty open, so I'll certainly.
It's pretty open so far, as far as I can tell, Jonathan. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Yeah, yeah. I have a section in my book, "Return of the Bird Tribes." I don't know if you ever heard that book. It was published in 1988 by Ken Carey, and he had this experience right during Hiroshima and Nagasaki, in this other world dimension. He had this vision, and so that to me is really fascinating because I mentioned that to Bart before he passed, and he said it's documented because he was familiar. He said he just can imagine that meeting was happening because it was like slowing things down in 3 days. You could see what happened with Nagasaki, and you could see the mess. But there was also some positive communications being given to us that made us want to come back into this realm, which a lot of us weren't ready to do. But once we heard, what we heard, I feel like that's why I put that in the book. That whole section from Ken Carey's books in my book, as well as that UPI article, and all my poetry. A lot of my poetry is there, so it's not too thick. It's only around 160 pages, and the book has the pictures in it, and but it was an interesting experience because I did 25 years of flybynews.com, and then I was um, finishing it up for 2024, and I got the election, the New Year's happening. So okay, I'm just leaving the website there, and then I moved over to my book, and and then it only took me about a month and a half to get the first draft down. And then I was trying to get it published through a publisher, and I didn't have any success. And they said you need to get this professionally edited, and so I ended up didn't have any money to put into that, so I used DeepSeek, which is a AI from China, and I recommend that AI more than any other AI because they use less electricity to generate. And they had to because the US government wasn't allowing them the technology to use the NVIDIA technology. So the Chinese scientists got innovative and they made it much cheaper and much lower energy intensive. And I don't know why everybody doesn't go with that because the impact of these power plants around these data centers can be very damaging to our health. So,
Yeah.
I use the DeepSeek. It was very helpful, and it's why I think it's so well written that you were able to say what I'm saying is like a translator, and said, yeah, that's really good. That's why it's better. So, I hope I've got good feedback on the reading of it and stuff.
Well, bless you for your amazing, expansive explorations and the depth and the clarity with which you try to expose them. It's amazing. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, it's a lot to take in. Thank you so much. Cool.
Jonathan, can you adjust your camera a little bit? We see only your forehead and
Oh yeah.
eyeglasses.
Oh yeah.
That's better.
Okay.
So Marty has her hand raised. Go ahead, Marty.
Okay, thank you, Susan, because you had yours raised. My first comment was, could Jonathan lower his camera? So thanks for him for handling
So the
that.
second time on Zoom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just I have two questions. One is on the moon landing or others, have you ever heard of Dave McGowan and the Center for an Informed America?
Oh, wagging the moon doggy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that guy.
Right. So if any of the rest of you have not listened, in my opinion, one of the best, most thorough debunking of the moon landing. And again, it's he died very kind of quickly of cancer anyway in 2009. Dave did, but it's Dave McGowan, MC capital GOWAN, and his website is Center for an Informed America that I think his daughter is keeping
Yep.
active. And he investigates some different things. He was early on 9/11. Also, he does Lincoln, Wagging the Moon Doggy, which is the moon, and they're all written, but a friend of his read that. If you're more of a, I like to
Yeah.
listen, and a friend read Wagging the Moon Doggy. It's not a video, it's just really, but it's funny, funny, funny. Boston Marathon, and an unusual one, Laurel Canyon, where he presents that all those famous singers like David Crosby, they're all sons of intelligence community in Washington. I don't know. I haven't gone big deep, but just as FYI, and I'm very glad you like him as well. So that is reinforcing for me to hear. So then my other question is like the weaponization of space. What is this current status? I hate to ask. And do you feel there's a relationship with the Artemis project?
I think it's mostly political with Artemis, and I don't think they can. I think they're going to get sick from this chip. I think that they're going to get radiated, and they have a section. The Orion capsule was built to protect them, but it's a very active solar time. So, but they're into doing it, and I feel like it's sending guinea pigs. Astronaut guinea pigs. You might as well develop the unmanned missions. It doesn't make any sense to use manned missions in space. And talking about going to Mars is totally absurd. When we have this message on Mars, and that we've already looked at from 50 years ago, and so I'm against the use of astronauts in space beyond low Earth orbit, and that's where they've always been. Except and then Apollo didn't land on the moon; they didn't launch off the moon. If you go into that, it's like 9/11, with all the evidence.
So you feel the Artemis project is political in the sense of, oh yeah, oh we haven't been back for 54 years, so let's show the world
Yeah.
that yeah we really did it, and yeah.
And China's trying to do it too, and but they never sent the astronaut beyond low Earth orbit. So maybe they do have some protection for the astronauts, but it's really for show and for beating the Chinese. But the question is, we're going to have an Earth here. Earth is so perfect, and the moon's perfect for the Earth, and maintains our seasons and everything is. But they've been discovering bases in the moon, like they were able to use a scanning device and found structures in the southern part of the moon underground. So there's a lot of questions about it. I know there was one tribe in Africa that had oral communication saying that there was a time before the moon was there. So.
And what there's a fun series, if any of you it's on Apple or so, I can't remember, it's in its fourth season, called For All Mankind. It's just a fictional series, but I really like it because it shows what would have really happened if we had landed on the moon. It's like, oh, well, we kept going back, and then we developed a little base, and then we developed a bigger base, and then we're competing with the Russians up there to get resources. It's like, yeah, see, if we really landed, that's what would have happened. But anyway, that's an aside. So going back to the weaponization, what do you know about the current situation with that?
Well, I know they have laser weapons now that they're developing, and but they can't afford to blow up satellites because they'll create all this junk there, and it'll destroy space for everybody in low Earth orbit because of the debris that could be around there. So I think we're right now they're all about oil. This is still in the fossil fuel industry. And they're still doing weapons. I think once they go back to Mars and greed, like what Kennedy wanted to do about all the nuclear nations, putting it all away, that's when we'll be progressing on all these levels. And we probably would have maybe some intergalactic help at that time, because their message has always been, the abuse of light is the nuclear detonation. And that's what that formulas were all about. And that Bart Jordan, showed up. So there's a 58-minute, also on my website. I like everyone to be challenged enough to read everything from the top all the way down to the bottom, because I have a whole section on different moon landing issues with Dave McGowan's site and all that there, as well as 9/11 and UFOs so everything that's important is on my main page. But once you see it's there, then you can always go back there and find it. So I use it as a resource all the time for communicating and getting to links. But the Substack is my more recent, and I'm really getting excited about communicating on that site, because I just found out from this guy that was doing some podcasts on the moon on the face of Mars. He was saying that did you know that there was a comic book called The Face on Mars in 1958? Jack Kirby wrote it. So I don't know. Should I do the share again and show you that picture? It's really funny. Okay. See, here it is.
We don't see it yet.
So that's
It's not showing.
not showing?
No.
Oh,
Click on the arrow with the box around it first, and then pick it
okay.
and click share, the blue.
Yeah.
Almost there. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, this is from 1958. So Bart Jordan was in the military in the 50s, stationed outside of England for search and rescue. And this is after his, being a child prodigy, and Theodore von Karman helped him a lot in his work in meeting people. Actually, he went around the world with General LeMay to prove the Strategic Air Command circumference of the Earth that was from the ancient civilizations. So it's pretty interesting. So this is what I mean about the it goes for a long ways. But at the bottom you get to see this UFOs and nukes. It's a very important press conference in 2000 that was done with these military. That was in 2018. But then this thing about Bart Jordan and Mars Viking, it's an hour and 52 minutes and 25 seconds. He goes a lot into the numbers and his meeting with Einstein when he was like 10. And then this is his last presentation, Manhattan Project, NASA whistleblower. And then he did one about the Denali Indians and the Pi Denali and abuse of light. So all these things, everything on my main page. And NASA, this is about 9/11, I mean, the moon landing, and then there's a lot of 9/11, Sound of Freedom, all that stuff.
You've been
Yeah, it's so good to have, because I feel pretty invisible sometimes. So
well, all of this stuff, this exposure can make someone feel kind of isolated from the mainstream, and we are a very tribal species, so it's very difficult. I'm going to take my turn now. If you're done. Okay. You mentioned having Kucinich.
yes.
Are you still in touch with him? I've been trying to get him as a speaker.
No, I tried. I wanted him to review my book too.
Oh, okay.
But he hasn't responded, and
Yeah.
so he seems distant.
And
it was very interesting that he was working with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and I almost saw him there in Boston when he first broke out the, we mentioned about the campaign.
he's still quite active.
But he quit the campaign when because of Israel and the RFK Jr. support for Israel, which it's hard for me to understand because he seemed to be following his uncle and his his father's direction, but then I think they must have something control him with Epstein stuff or something when he made mistakes. He used to be an addict.
RFK Jr. even supported the glyphosate production, which was very confusing.
No, no, he really didn't, Sue. If you listen to his interview with Joe Rogan, he really qualifies it in a way that is understandable.
He sued them. He won millions of dollars, but he didn't quit because of them, giving no liability. And I think that's that, as well as a genocide, are issues to leave an administration that has been doing that type of criminal activity.
Yeah.
You wonder what's going on behind the scenes sometimes. So you also mentioned the Star Wars project and the anthrax.
Yes.
And I just wanted to do a little plug for Barbara Honecker. She's done a lot of research on that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's such an important one. And my key contact for being awakened about the COVID was really because of the anthrax with following Francis Boyle, where he predicted it was from Fort Detrick before anybody else said it. And then in February in 2020, he was talking about the Fort Detrick connection with the University of North Carolina, sending it to Wuhan, and that he called it out for what it was. And so I felt like I was right on top of it at the very beginning, and it was very frustrating not to have people listen to you, and especially with your family and other things you want to protect. But because you knew the policies was very dangerous and stuff, so then they suicided that guy, that poor guy that from Fort Detrick, because they didn't want to take responsibility for it. They found one person to kill and said that he committed suicide. He was a rogue guy. And that's so when they did the movie Plandemic, I knew about the Francis Boyle and that, and then there was all this thing about Judy Mikovits, and I had to read her book because you go on the internet and you just she gets trashed using the same words by everybody. So I said, no, I'm gonna have to read a book now. and then it took me a long time to read that book because it's so thick in some levels. But she's a really good person, and so. And then another good book about that issue was by Cheryl Atkinson, the Follow the Science: How Big Pharma Misleads, Obscures, and Prevails. Right. And she does an audio book on that too. You can get at the library.
I also wanted to bring up archaeology. I've been really fascinated with what they've been finding, deep cultures that we never suspected existed before. Basically because of LIDAR. That's a technology that, because the archaeology prior to the use of LIDAR pretty much meant you just had to look at hints and start digging randomly, but now they've got LIDAR to give them much greater sight as to where to dig and start excavating. They're even looking into the jungles of the Amazon and finding ancient cultures. They're looking into the oceans, finding ancient cultures. Because at the end of the Ice Age,
Göbekli Tepe.
Yes,
that's a good site.
Yes, and they found a bunch of other ones within 100 miles of Göbekli Tepe. But the LIDAR technology, I don't know much about that. Does that also use sonar that disrupts the sonar using animals like whales?
No, it's different technology. It's more like light than sound.
Oh, okay. So it's
So
harmless to the
yeah,
environment.
yeah, I think
That's
so.
good to know. Let's see, I'd
You
want
know, the UFOs that they've been witnessing, I think, are probably the AI from these advanced ancient civilizations, and that they're in the oceans, they're elsewhere, but they're the ones that have been shutting off the nukes, and it could be like guardians at some point, because they these ancient civilizations were human advanced civilizations, and why wouldn't they have developed that? With their advanced technologies that could still, wait for this time period where we're blowing up nukes.
Well, that's another thing that's I've discovered with the my deep dive into archaeology is the ancient Sumerians
Yeah.
and those cuneiform tablets have exposed so much advanced technology. What did they just within 1,000 years have this? No. It had to have come from
Before.
evolved from somewhere before. And so that raises another question. The Sumerian mythology of the Anunnaki. Have you delved into that at all? And do the Anunnaki also seem to connect with this Martian culture?
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
do.
they're all connected. I mean, the Bart says the first language, that was embedded with this information from this events were the Hellenic language, and then the Semitic and the Germanic alphabets came out of that, and but for a long time they were all saying the same thing from their own ways, and it's kind of compatible. And then it's like the Tower of Babel. They started separating everything, and that's the state of the world that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, and it is all connected. I know a lot of people will look at this and say, wait a minute, I thought this was 9/11 truth. But it is all connected. And hopefully we can convey that message. But anyway, Jane has her hand raised. Go ahead, Jane.
Yeah, this is just a quick speculative question around the astronauts on the Artemis project, assuming that it is actually, a real adventure that's going forward. I don't know if you've questioned that, and it may be.
Well, I've been, following Avi Loeb. He's been showing me that there's a lot of independent astronomers following everything, and they couldn't do that back in 1972. But
Right.
now it's a lot different. They could probably see him go into the thing and go
Okay.
around the Earth, and then they're going to go.
Okay. Okay, that good. But my question has to do with the astronauts or do you think they're not aware of the damage that they may be susceptible to
I
with
think
the
so.
radiation?
Yeah,
Or and
because
they,
they're not.
they've somehow been brainwashed, or their egos may say, well, I'll get famous for being one of these, explorers,
Yeah,
And
I think a lot of it has to do with that. You're absolutely right.
okay, okay.
It's more like we'll take it for the Gipper if we had to, but if they're not aware of the moon landing hoax, then they're not being disclosed about the truth that they be the first ones leaving low Earth orbit for all time. They should
Yeah,
at least be given that information because that's the truth. Since they faked the Apollo, but they're just being. I don't know why they're doing it because it likely will harm them through their
yeah.
lives. But
But they'll be harmed in what's the way with somehow kind of glory, whatever. I
yeah,
don't
right,
know.
right.
Who knows? Thank you. All right.
Yeah, we all grew up thinking things, and then here we are 9/11 was the can opener that opened our minds to a lot of issues. And I'm really, thankful that I can share with you. And again, subscribe to the Substack page, and then you'll get my future posts. And my email is really easy to communicate. And Susan Gray, I'm doing an event at the Greenfield Public Library on April 25th from 10:30 till noon. And this was the other event. So I'm finally, having this book done gives me more motivation to try to present myself. And that's why Susan was so nice to get me no longer to being a Zoom version. So I'm with you guys, and I'll be around again.
Well, I've become an expert now at Zoom. And you've had plenty of practice with public speaking. I've been to your Greenfield Public Library event before. And thank you for doing all this work for so many decades. Well, at least a couple of decades.
If you read my book, it starts off in Brooklyn when I was born. So you get the early stuff with Martin Luther King's assassination when I was in high school, and then how I experienced the Kennedy assassination.
Right.
So it's kind of good being old in some ways because you had all this experience, and then it starts making sense more later on, because now I understand this.
I belong to a group. I haven't been very active in it for the recent months, but for the past few years, JFK peace speech that centers around his 1969 speech at the American University.
Yeah,
And it's definitely
You don't mean 1960. You don't mean 1969.
No, 1962. Sorry, of course not. Anyway, or I guess it was 60. Yeah, it was just a few months before his assassination, June before his assassination.
63, probably 63.
Yeah, 63. But it's definitely a speech that everybody should read carefully, because it's why we do what we do. And we're trying to get the speech read at Congress. So Roy McCoy has his hand raised, and I think that will be the last question we'll take before we close. Go ahead, Roy.
Okay, hi, Jonathan. We corresponded in 2012 for a while, and I was a Flyby News subscriber for a certain period of time. It was a good while, I think. At any rate, I'm sorry I missed the presentation. I was down at the park with my dog, and I'm not keeping track of the time. But I will have a look at it when it comes up on Rumble or YouTube or wherever. Well, here's my question. One of the things that I was writing to you about back then was the moon landing thing, and about how I had seen a panel discussion with James Van Allen on YouTube, in which he flatly declared that it would never be possible for anyone to go through the radiation belts. And he was very confident about that, and it was James Van Allen. And the thing was that I could not find a video of that TV panel later, and I've never found it since. I was wondering if you're aware of it, and whether you might know where it might be, if you are aware of it and know where to find it.
Well, I'm in a Facebook group called the moon landing hoax, no flat Earth, and on Facebook, and I could probably find it through them.
Okay, good. I'm in that group too. I'll see you there. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, and Jonathan Mark Haber sent me a friend request, and if you go to flybynews.com, click on the cover of my book, and that'll go to the Substack page, and then subscribe there.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan.
Click on in plain sight when you see it on the website.
My suspicion, I guess I have two suspicions. One is that that video has been completely disappeared. Nobody's going to find it anywhere. And my second suspicion is that the Artemis astronauts have not gone beyond low Earth orbit, but perhaps there's some proof that they actually have. I'll believe that when I see it. So those are my two suspicions in that regard. Okay, that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. And thank you, Jonathan, for joining us tonight. This has been very enlightening. And, I wish you well in the distribution of your book. And I'm definitely going to get a copy and read it. I thank you also for tying all these subjects into 9/11 and how all this keeps going on and on and on, and how are we going to stop it?
25 years this September 11th. So this would be a good time to bring other groups with 9/11 to say, look, you gotta, they've been doing this pattern for years, and we'll help you with the moon landing or with JFK, and we need to start crossing over to each other's groups so we can have more impact.
Thank you very much. So we have no further speakers scheduled for Boston 9/11 Truth at the moment. But do feel free, everyone, to email me with suggestions for a speaker at sueserpa@gmail.com. That's SUESERPA@gmail.com. And do visit us on Boston 9/11 Truth .org. We publish all our videos there. We also publish them on Rumble and YouTube and Facebook. And thank you again. I just want to mention one more thing. One idea I had that might be a little more uplifting for a future meeting is music in 9/11. So do send me your favorite 9/11 music videos. And if you know anybody who has done original music regarding 9/11, please also send that to me, suggest them as a speaker, because there is a lot of, I do believe an activist movement progresses with music. That really helps launch the effort when you tie music into your cause. So I would like to start thinking about that, and getting everybody else thinking about that, how we can inject music into our cause. But thank you again, Jonathan. I do appreciate you. We've been friends for a long time. We're in the same blue state. And, I really appreciate your coming here tonight.
You feel welcome to send my email to Marty and other people to keep in touch.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'll have to get out to Colorado sometime.
Yeah.
Maybe in June.
Touch with Marty when you're out in Colorado.
Yeah, we'll do.
All right. Terrific. Good night, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.